Welcome to the first official release of the fire, dear traveller. The flames dance with new tales tonight, and the shadows whisper of adventures yet untold. Settle in, let the warmth ease your burdens, and allow me to share with you a story that has found its way to my collection. Some say it was the beginnings of new unrest throughout all Faerûn. The evening mist clung to the cobblestones of Greenest like a burial shroud, and Matthias Goldweaver pulled his merchant's cloak tighter against the autumn chill. The streets that had once bustled with the cheerful commerce of the green fields now whispered with tension, and shadows seemed to dance where none should fall. Matthias had built his fortune on reading the signs that others missed, the slight tremor in a customer's voice that meant they were desperate, the way the light caught differently on true gold versus fool's gold, the telltale scuff marks that revealed a caravan's true origins. Tonight, those same instincts screamed danger, yet he pressed forward through the winding alleys toward the Rusty Dragon Inn. The letter had arrived that morning, sealed with black wax and bearing no identifying mark save for a crude drawing of a dragon's claw. The message was simple. The shipment you've been expecting has arrived. Room 7. Come alone. Midnight. But Matthias had ordered no shipment, and the handwriting belonged to no merchant he knew. Still, curiosity was a merchant's greatest asset and deadliest flaw. In 40 years of trading from Waterdeep to Westgate, Matthias had learned that the only profitable opportunities often came wrapped in mystery. And these days, with strange rumors drifting down from the north like smoke from distant fires, a wise merchant investigated every lead. The Rusty Dragon Inn squatted at the corner of two narrow streets like a fat spider in its web. Light spilled from its diamond-paned windows, casting dancing shadows on the walls, and the sound of laughter and conversation drifted into the night. But as Matthias approached, he noticed something odd. The laughter was too forced, too bright, like actors playing their parts just a beat too late. Inside, the common room buzzed with activity, yet something felt wrong. The serving wenches moved with practiced efficiency, but their eyes darted constantly toward the stairs. The patrons nursed their ales too long, speaking in voices just slightly too low. And in the corner, 3 figures in dark traveling cloaks sat perfectly still, their faces hidden in shadow. Room 7, Matthias murmured to the innkeep, a rotund man whose nervous smile revealed too many teeth.
Ah, yes, sir. Your business associate is waiting. Top of the stairs, last door on the left.
The innkeeper's voice carried the oily quality of a man who asked no questions because he feared the answers. The wooden stairs creaked beneath Matthias's feet, each step seeming to echo longer than it should. The hallway stretched before him, lit by guttering candles that cast more shadows than light. Door after door passed, rooms 1 through 6, until he stood before the last portal, its wooden surface scarred and weathered. He raised his hand to knock, then paused. Through the thin walls came the sound of voices, low and urgent. One voice he recognized with a chill that ran down his spine. His own nephew, Marcus, who had disappeared 10 days ago while traveling the trade route to Elturel.
The shipment from Beregost was larger than expected,
Marcus was saying,
but the ceremony requires exact proportions. The Worm Speaker will not be pleased if we miscalculate again.
Then we don't miscalculate,
came another voice, harsh and cold as winter iron.
Every gold piece collected, every treasure hoarded, brings us closer to her awakening. The Queen of Dragons has waited long enough in her infernal prison.
Matthias's blood turned to ice water. The cult of the dragon. He had heard whispers, rumors dismissed as tavern talk and superstition. But here was his own nephew, his sister's boy who had learned arithmetic at his knee, speaking of dark ceremonies, and dragon queens.
The old man suspects nothing.
The cold voice continued.
Uncle Matthias is a merchant first, family second.
Marcus replied, with a bitterness that cut deeper than any blade.
He thinks I'm dead in a roadside ditch somewhere. The letter will bring him here, and then we'll have access to his entire network. Every trade route, every warehouse, every contact from here to the Sword Coast.
The floorboard beneath Matthias's foot chose that moment to groan like a dying thing. The voices within the room fell silent, and he heard the soft whisper of steel being drawn from leather sheaths.
Expecting someone, were we?
Came the cold voice, tinged now with amusement. Matthias turned to flee, but the hallway that had seemed so long now appeared impossibly short. The 3 cloaked figures from the common room blocked his path, moving with the fluid grace of predators. Their faces remained hidden, but their hands rested on weapons that gleamed with an oily, unnatural sheen. Behind him, the door to room 7 swung open with a creak that sounded like a coffin lid. Marcus stepped into the hallway, and Matthias barely recognized the boy he had once taught to count copper coins. His nephew's eyes held a fanatical gleam, and strange symbols were tattooed along his neck. Serpentine forms that seemed to writhe in the candlelight. "Hello, Uncle," Marcus said, his voice carrying the same cold amusement as his companion. "I'm afraid this meeting isn't quite what you expected." "Marcus," Matthias whispered, his merchant composure finally cracking. "What have you done? What have you become?" "I've found purpose," Marcus replied, stepping closer. "I've learned that there are powers in this world far greater than gold or silver. The cult of the dragon offers transformation, Uncle. Evolution. The weak serve the strong, and the strong serve her." From the room behind Marcus stepped another figure, tall and gaunt, wearing robes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. This had been the source of the cold voice, a man whose very presence made the air taste of copper and ash. "Matthias Goldweaver," the figure said, inclining his head in a mockery of polite greeting. "Your reputation precedes you. A merchant of considerable skill and even more considerable connections. Just what our cause requires." "I will die before I help you," Matthias managed, though his voice shook. "Death?" The robed figure laughed, a sound like glass breaking in the distance. "Oh, my dear merchant, death is not the only alternative to cooperation. There are fates far more educational." The cultist raised one pale hand, and Matthias saw that the fingers were too long, too thin, ending in what looked like talons rather than nails. Dark energy gathered around those fingers like smoke, and the temperature in the hallway plummeted. "The transformation can be unpleasant," the cultist continued. "But those who serve willingly often find the process far more bearable. You could join your nephew in glorious purpose, help us convert your trade network to our cause. Think of it. Every wagon train carrying not mere goods, but the tools of divine resurrection." Matthias closed his eyes, his merchant's mind racing through possibilities, like an abacus calculating profit and loss. But instead of gold, he weighed lives. All the traders, the caravan guards, the simple folk who would suffer if the cult of the dragon gained access to his network. When he opened his eyes, he had found his resolve. "No," he said, his voice steady for the first time since entering the inn. "I am a merchant, true enough, but I am also a man of greenness, and I will not see innocents traded like cattle for your dark purposes." The cultist's eyes flashed with anger, and the dark energy around his fingers intensified. But before he could strike, a new sound filled the hallway. The heavy tread of armored boots on wooden stairs.
"By the order of Lord Warden,"
came a voice from below.
"this establishment is under investigation for harboring enemies of the realm."
The cultist snarled, his composure finally cracking. "Fools! You've led them directly to us." "I led no one," Matthias said, though his heart hammered against his ribs. But a merchant learns to read the signs. The guards have been watching this place for days. The sound of boots grew louder, accompanied by the rattle of chainmail and the distinctive ring of drawn steel. The three cloaked figures at the end of the hall exchanged glances, then melted back into the shadows with supernatural speed.
This isn't over, old man,
the cultist hissed, dark energy swirling around him like a living thing.
The Hoard grows, and with it, our power. Every treasure hoarded brings us closer to the Queen's return. You've merely delayed the inevitable.
Marcus! Matthias called out desperately as his nephew began to fade into the same unnatural shadows that had claimed the others. It's not too late. You're still my sister's son. Come home. For just a moment, Marcus hesitated, and Matthias saw a flicker of the boy he had once known. But then, the shadows claimed him, and he was gone. The guardsmen burst into the hallway just as the last of the cultists had vanished, leaving only the smell of sulfur and the echo of inhuman laughter. Captain Escobar, a grizzled veteran with scars that spoke of battles fought and won, surveyed the empty corridor with professional eyes.
Matthias Goldweaver,
he said, recognizing the merchant.
What brings you to such an unsavory company?
Research, Matthias replied, his voice surprisingly steady. And I'm afraid I've learned more than I bargained for. As the guards searched for the now empty Room 7, Matthias stood in the hallway and contemplated the weight of knowledge. His nephew was lost to darkness. His trade network compromised, and somewhere in the depths of the Nine Hells, an ancient evil stirred in its prison. But he was alive, and he had information. In the days to come, that information would prove invaluable to those who stood against the growing shadow. For now, though, he was content to stand in the flickering candlelight and count himself among the living. Outside, the mist began to lift, and the first pale light of a dawn touched the windows of the rusty Dragon Inn. A new day was beginning in Greenest, and with it, the first moves in a game that would determine the fate of realms. The merchant's last gamble had paid off, but Matthias Goldweaver suspected that the real game was only just beginning. And so, this tale draws to a close. Though its echoes may linger in your dreams tonight, the fire burns lower now. But don't despair. I have countless more stories waiting to be shared with you. If this tale stirred something within you, if it reminded you why magic still matters in this mundane world, then please, light your own beacon. That glowing thumbs up tells the spirits of story that our fellowship grows stronger. Subscribe to join our circle permanently, and ring that notification bell so you'll know the moment I return with new chronicles. The fire burns brightest when more souls gather around it, wouldn't you agree? Now if that's the case, share this tale with another weary soul who needs it, reminding them that adventure still exists. Tag a friend who would appreciate a good story by the fire. The more who believe, the more real these worlds become. And if you're new to our hearth, explore the playlist of chronicles that I've gathered. Tales of heroes and villains, love and loss, magic and mystery, each one carefully chosen for souls like yours. Until the fire calls us together again, may your own adventures be worthy of legend. And may you never lose the wonder that brought you here tonight. Travel or sleep well, brave soul. The long rest awaits your return.